Halloween is like just a holiday where you just dress up and go trick-or-treating and get candy.
I didn't really look at it at the religious aspects until a couple of years ago. You know, when people told me Halloween's not a good holiday. I don't really consider it a holiday, but I mean, I do still go out, get dressed, and get free candy.
To me, Halloween was a day where I could dress up and just go trick-or-treating with my friends.
When I was younger, I celebrated it, and it was just kind of like the time where we dressed up and we got free candy. And I'm Christian, so later on, there was a time where my parents were like, well, we're not really sure if we want to participate in this, because they felt that it had changed from being a place where it was just, you know, kids dressed up as pumpkins and like nice things to all of a sudden more like horrific and disgusting creatures. But as I got older, like in my teen years, my parents were like, well, yeah, if you want to, go ahead.
I actually was raised not celebrating it, so I know it's the devil's holiday and something you shouldn't partake in.
My parents are pastors, so I was never really allowed to like do that. And our church always did like a harvest fest more instead of celebrating Halloween. No, my parents never allowed it.
We went out with the family, you know, dressed up, had a good time, collect a lot of candy.
I stopped trick-or-treating probably about like 9 years old because, you know, I don't know, too much candy. I'm not a big fan of it.
When I think of Halloween, I think of costumes and candy. I don't really think of it as it being too profound or anything.
Hey, Kristen, check me out. I'm Abraham Lincoln.
It's so funny because your name's Abraham.
I know.
Guess what I am?
I don't know.
I'm an angel.
Oh, okay, I get it, yeah. I was pretty excited for this Halloween episode. Couldn't wait to break this, like, half of a costume out, you know?
I have great memories of trick-or-treating, but, you know, as Catholic Christians, this topic of Halloween can be pretty tricky.
I know. Halloween appears to be a completely secular or non-religious holiday, but there's more to it than meets the eye.
So, is Halloween a religious holiday? That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Abe Lincoln.
And this is Realfaith TV.
For many of us, as children, Halloween meant trick-or-treating and getting lots of candy.
For others, Halloween may not have been celebrated because of its pagan association.
For Catholics, the origin of Halloween is a religious one.
Let's meet our spotlight guest, Dan O'Boyle, a former RFTV cast member who will tell us about the meaning of Halloween for Catholics.
Yes.
You've got two parts to Halloween. You've got the secular part that a lot of people celebrate, Christian and non-Christian alike, and you've got the part that a lot of people don't know about, which is the celebration of All Saints' Day and of All Souls' Day. When people think of Halloween, they think of candy, they think of costumes, they think of scary things. Growing up as a kid, Halloween was a chance for my brothers and I to go, you know, run off together trick-or-treating. And when we were kids, we couldn't wait to get together and have our parents take us out. And every year my mom made these costumes. I remember the year that we were all Power Rangers. And, you know, I had 3 younger brothers, so we had most of the Mighty Morphin Squad, you know, together and ready to go. And from that part, as a kid, that's my memory of Halloween. That's why I liked Halloween growing up. But as an adult, I actually have a very different perspective on it. As a religion teacher, we would often examine All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day in class. And I'd have a special kind of prayer service that I did that day to kind of explain the difference between All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. I think we incorporate our faith into Halloween by remembering that the season is special, by celebrating not only secular, but also from the Christian perspective. Remember that All Saints' Day is for a celebration of all those people in a relationship with God. Remember that All Souls' Day is a celebration for all those working on that relationship. Keeping those in mind is half of the holiday, and the other half is the secular half. Is there anything wrong with celebrating a secular holiday? No, but we have to keep both halves in balance.
The word Halloween is a shortened form of All Hallows' Eve, the day before All Saints' Day.
Hallow is the same word for holy or sacred.
And een is a contraction of evening.
Even though Halloween's origins are rooted in our faith, there are many non-religious or secular aspects. Some are completely harmless.
And others are questionable. But as Dan said, we need to find the balance.
So do most people know that the origins of Halloween are religious?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
Do you think Halloween is a religious holiday? Explain.
For the pagans and the witches, but not anything that we should be celebrating now.
It's made to have fun, have kids go out on one night to get candy from people. There's nothing religious about Halloween at all.
I think it could be religious.
No, I don't think Halloween's a religious holiday. You just kind of get dressed up and have fun and go trick-or-treating with your friends and family.
My parents always put it as it's like the devil's birthday because everyone gets dressed up in costumes, does stuff like that. So I never really thought it was holy in any type of way.
I heard it was like the devil's birthday or something, but I don't know.
I think it's a pagan holiday. I think somebody just made sense of it and gave kids a reason to get dressed up and get candy.
I think it started out religious, as like a religious holiday.
Some people say it is.
I think that back in the pagan days it was, but it was celebrated because they thought they would get away the evil spirits.
Do you think many people know that the origin of Halloween is religious? Explain.
No, probably not. Because when you're taught in school, you just kind of like, oh, Halloween's coming. Let's get candy. Let's dress up.
It's so commercialized, Halloween these days, that all it is free candy, getting dressed, going to parties.
My cousins just told me that a while ago, but I don't think really many people know.
It's celebrated so widely and praised so highly as a regular holiday. I don't think they're aware that they're actually celebrating something like that.
I don't think a lot of people really care that much either, sadly.
The people who go to church.
Let's see what Halloween has meant through the years to our guests today, and if they were aware of its religious aspects.
Okay, they are Andrew, Mary, Annie, Bree, Vince, and Kendall. And Moses.
That's just Phil.
Oh, that's Phil.
What's
up, Phil?
Not much. I had to dress as Moses. After all, he is my confirmation name.
Oh, well, you can already tell why I picked Abraham Lincoln, because that's my name, Abraham. Yep.
Toasty.
Indeed.
So what costumes are you guys wearing, and what has Halloween meant for you?
Well, I'm wearing a reindeer hat. So Halloween's always just been a time to go out trick-or-treating and just, have parties. It's never been really something I thought about religion on.
Same. I'm a football player, and Halloween to me just meant dressing up and getting candy.
I guess a sailor today, and Halloween to me was more kind of a tradition where we'd all dress up, we'd go to my family friend's house, and she'd have a cider party where we'd make apple cider. And that's what I did for years and years, but nothing really too religious.
For me, it was always my family would throw a party and we'd invite people over, eat lots of candy, trick-or-treat, and then play rock band or something, and it was awesome.
Very awesome.
All right, well, I've got a hat.
Yeah.
With my family, the tradition has always been, we always went out trick-or-treating ever since I was a young kid.
I stopped trick-or-treating when I was quite young, and it never really struck me as something that I really wanted to do afterwards. My dad said, I'd rather pay you money than actually take you out trick-or-treating. I'm like, that works for me. That really works for me. But I mean, Halloween, as I've grown older, it's just something that actually becomes a little bit of a chore, not a chore, but a job, because you have to get costumes, you have to put it together. And I don't want to go out and buy costumes, so I'm trying to make costumes, be creative, and it's a lot of work.
For me, when I was younger, when I was a little girl, they had the pumpkin and the cute pictures, but it was never really a big thing. I was not really allowed to go trick-or-treating. I went to a Halloween costume party, and I did that once or twice, but out of that, I've never really celebrated Halloween.
I stopped trick-or-treating at a very young age. Reason being, actually, is because my neighborhood just got too dangerous, so my parents didn't want me really trick-or-treating anymore. Like Vince, I kind of got bored with it anyway, it just kind of outgrew it. But I still give candy to the little kids that come around. And then the day after, we go to church for All Saints Day.
Learning about the history of Halloween in Christianity is important for us as we mature in our faith.
And becoming aware of what Halloween was intended to be, we are able to make the choice whether we want to honor the day's religious significance,
celebrating the holy days of All Saints and All Souls,
or only as an excuse to dress up in a costume, collect candy, and have a party.
But is it possible to do both? Can we enjoy Halloween and respect our Catholic tradition?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
The way society is, there's no way that we can celebrate it and still think of it in the good Christian ways?
I guess you can, but if people knew more about it, maybe they'd understand it better.
I believe that we could be able to by still like going out trick or treating and having parties or whatever we're doing and like praying or whatever the special prayer for that night or something.
No, I think that'll be succumbing to the times and trying to make sense of things and being a part of things that you probably just shouldn't.
I think you can. You know, you do a little bit. You know, you go out trick or treat, and then you come back and you talk about it. You know, if you're an adult, talk to your kids about it. And if you're a kid, try to listen.
I think we can if people are like aware of what it is, but people don't really think of it as being religious. It's just like a way to get candy for free. You gotta like spread the knowledge.
It is about spreading the knowledge. Part of the knowledge is to be aware of the spiritual dangers associated with the holiday.
We must be careful to stay away from matters involving the dark side, which tend to creep up especially during this time of year.
Activities like taking part in a seance, tarot card readings, and Ouija boards may seem harmless.
Not only can they be harmful, but they can lead to even deeper involvement into even more dangerous pursuits like
witchcraft, paganism, and the occult.
All of these activities can open the door to evil.
Anything that tries to get in touch with supernatural power apart from God is dangerous to our souls.
Make no doubt about it, the power of darkness does exist. Satan will take advantage of any opportunity to turn our attention and direction away from God.
The Catechism of the Catholic Church warns against any types of these activities,
such as putting faith in horoscopes, palm reading, interpretation of omens, and consulting mediums.
They all conceal a desire for control over time, history, and other human beings.
They contradict the honor, respect, and awe or loving fear that we owe to God alone.
My sister once actually messed with a Ouija board, and when she told my uncle, who's a priest, he got nervous. He was like, "Did you really do that?" And she was like, "Yeah, it was a long time ago." He was like, "Well, thank God you're fine. Those are really dangerous." And he actually went on to explain how dangerous it is to mess with that, because it actually could allow demons to enter you and allow spirits from the other side to enter into our world.
When I was little, we weren't even allowed to acknowledge, the fact that the Ouija board existed in my grandmother's house because she hated it. Her grandmother used to have a Ouija board, and she was afraid of it when she was little.
It seems so weird to me. I never thought anything of it. I've actually played the game before,
I've never thought that there was this existence of this evil in the world that was actually not just personified like in writing. Evil I figured would be people's negative choices and choosing to destroy away from God, but not an actual force.
When you're little, you get told of God and Jesus and how wonderful he is. You don't really get informed that, there are bad spirits, there are, bad powers out there. And so I don't think people really realize what they're messing with when they do use a Ouija board or, go get their palm read. I mean, it's just, they don't really understand because they're not told.
And that's a big mistake. Not knowing about it is the worst thing possible, because that leaves you open and vulnerable. So, make no mistake that the devil is out there and he's working,
That's also why you shouldn't curse at someone or, wish bad things upon anyone, because you might not think about it, but you're actually, kind of summoning, evil spirits to them or wishing bad things for, to happen to them. And you're not really thinking about it, but it's actually really dangerous.
Yeah, like you said, and same with Kendall, kids a lot of times do or say things without thinking about it. My priest, around the time of Halloween, he'll do a night at the church about the occult because, he wants us to know, and a lot of kids he knows will go out and be like, oh, it's a spooky holiday, let's do something like with a Ouija board, or let's mess around with evil powers. And so he did an info night to tell us all the bad stuff that's out there. Watch out for this on Halloween, don't do this, it seems like a fun game, but it's not. And he's actually said that he's gotten calls because kids were fooling around with Ouija boards and really bad things happened. And it really it freaked us out, but it made us realize wow, I guess there is something to this. Like you said, opening up the door for evil spirits in our world. But that's why it's so great that all of us, we have Jesus there. You have God to guard your heart, to protect us. And I know my sister and I do Liturgy of the Hours, and the night prayers always say protect us against evil spirits, guard our hearts, be with us, Lord, as we sleep. We have God, and that's the greatest power of all. It's really important to remember that no matter what's out there, we have Jesus, and he's going to keep us safe.
And Jesus was the greatest exorcist, he drove out many demons in his time.
Yeah. Next, Dan gives us some ideas on how to combine some of the innocent and fun parts of the secular tradition.
By recognizing and celebrating the Catholic feast days of All Souls and All Saints.
If we look at Halloween as a holiday that as children is celebrated with the wearing of costumes and the giving of candy and the adventure of going out into the night. We place a mark on our children that lets them know that Halloween, that season, All Saints' Day, All Souls' Day, is a special time. And eventually, hopefully, through catechesis, through growing up Catholic, through growing up Christian, we begin to understand that there's more to the season than meets the eye. But I think what's most important is an understanding of the time period as being special and a celebration that is age appropriate to that time period. As a small child, you celebrate it one way. As a responsible adult Christian, you celebrate it a different way. Maybe you go out to that Halloween party the night before, but make sure you get to church the day after.
What are some of the ways that you have celebrated All Saints and All Souls Day?
Well, in my old middle school, they'd allow us, instead of dressing up in costumes, to dress up as saints or prophets or whatever. And one year, actually, one kid dressed up as the Pope, and we had a mass, and the priest had the kid dressed as the Pope go up with him to the altar and sit in like his own little throne. And it was kind of interesting. It was kind of cute because it was just a small little kid. I was like, he's a little Pope.
Well, I've never really celebrated Halloween, like I said before, but my dad's Mexican. So what they do is the Day of the Dead, and they like go to the tombs of their loved ones that have passed away and like clean them off.
I know that like I have friends who've like visited, graves of their loved ones, in order to pay their respects, similar to like what you're saying. Usually probably brought like flowers and stuff.
Also, it's important to realize that All Saints' Day is a holiday of obligation. So not only when we're thinking about our loved ones and visiting their graves and things like that, but we're having that time of prayer and reflection.
All Saints' Day was established to counteract the ancient Celts feast called Samhain, which celebrated at the end of the summer.
The Celts believed that at this time of year, the border between this world and the world of the dead became thin, allowing harmful or harmless spirits to pass through.
So the church introduced All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Day to remove the fear of death and evil spirits.
And remind us to celebrate with the saints that Christ has conquered death.
Next, Dan tells us how we can celebrate this great reality of our faith on Halloween.
We can celebrate our faith in Halloween in a number of different ways. Praying together before we go out trick-or-treating is a great start. We might pray, we might talk about the events that are coming up, All Saints' Day, All Souls' Day. You might plan your evening for Halloween with the idea that you're going to be going to church together the next day. Why not do an all-night Halloween party with the plan of church at the end? It's different, but it's something that draws us together in community, which is really what we're striving for when we go to Mass. I think if society as a whole had a better understanding of the deeper meaning behind Halloween, it might shift the way that they celebrate. I know for my celebration of Halloween, I like to remember all those people who were close to me. And that gives me a depth of understanding or a depth of knowledge about God and who He is and how He cares for me, to send all these great and wonderful people into my life.
I read this story one time about this woman who was inspired by a medieval tradition of begging for soul bread in exchange for prayers for the household's deceased. So what she does every Halloween is she sends her kids out with little prayer cards, and in exchange for candy, she gives them this prayer card for the household's deceased.
I really like that prayer is something that we could help everyone with, and it'd be really nice if everyone can do that.
I think a good way we can incorporate, our faith into Halloween would be sort of what Phil's doing, is dressing up as saints even. I think our friends, some of them might, judge us or, say, hey, why are you dressing up as a saint? But I mean, it would be a great way to explain to them how our faith plays into Halloween.
Actually, last Halloween, it was really funny. And when I went to work, I was dressed as Santa Claus, Saint Nick, and all the kids found that interesting. And then later in the day, I was dressed as Moses because I switched costumes to go around. And someone was like, oh, why'd you dress as saints today? I was like, why not? And a couple times my family actually would invite our priest friends to our Halloween parties with us. So that was always funny, like having a priest there. Everyone's dressed in these random costumes, and you see this guy walk in, and they're like, "Oh, that's a great costume." They're like, "No, this is my uniform."
I know that one thing that I do is that whenever it's All Souls Day, I will call the family members of people who are deceased. So I'll call my grandma because my grandfather passed away and just kind of remind her, hey, it's All Souls Day, just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of Grandpa. And it kind of reminds other people too to, reflect on All Souls Day and the day and All Saints Day.
What if we dressed up as saints? Would that be an appropriate way to bring the holy back into Halloween?
What kind of response do you think we would get if we dressed as saints for Halloween?
That's what we asked the teens on the street.
I think they'll probably be like, okay, he's going as a saint. He's very religious. He's very, holy. He's not trying to go out here dressed up as, scary everybody, just boogeyman.
It's somewhat disrespectful for the way that Halloween's looked upon today, but I think people just look at it as, an ordinary costume.
You don't see that. It's not the normal Halloween costume.
Probably think that was just a costume, not think anything of it.
'Cause I have a lot of Christian friends, I'm guessing they probably wouldn't mind, but if I go to public school, so probably people would laugh, I guess, because that's not a typical costume.
My peers probably would think it's just nothing, another reason to get, dressed up and get drunk at a party. I've seen it millions of times.
They wouldn't care. They probably thought they were trying to be funny. It's supposed to just scary.
I think my friends would probably find it a little bit amusing, but knowing me and knowing that I'm actually religious, they probably wouldn't see anything wrong with it. And I would have to disagree with the guy who said that you have to dress scary for Halloween. I don't think you have to dress scary for Halloween.
I'm referred to as Phil Moses, and they say like, oh, you part the Red Sea when you're walking next to people because they move out of your way. So when as soon as they saw my costume, I didn't even have the tablet at the time, they were like, you're Moses, right? I was like, yep. But I have to say, if I could dress as any saint, I'd want to dress as St. Francis of Assisi because he was like the patron saint of like animals or something. Yeah. I would walk around with like a dog and like a cat or something and a bunch of different animals, a bird perched on my shoulder. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, like I said earlier, you would think your friends would, judge you a little bit because not many people associate Halloween with, a religious aspect. But I mean, I think that if it were something I had done, I could honestly see myself trying to explain to my friends why I'm doing it. So I would definitely want to use it as a tool to spread religion in a sense.
My friends would just see it as just another costume, not really as something that's religious, so.
Can you guys think of any saints besides St. Francis that would be cool to dress up as for Halloween?
I think it'd be pretty cool to dress up like St. Michael the Archangel. I mean, because he's amazing, but also because for little boys to dress up as him because, little boys like to be like pirates with a sword or, big tough guys. This way they could be, they could have a sword and be all tough, but it would be, an amazing holy angel.
St. Michael the Archangel is like one of the coolest angels. Like you're pretending to be an angel. It's so awesome. You're being one of Jesus' warriors.
Yeah, I know for me, I think I would dress up as St. Andrew. I mean, he's the patron saint of fishermen. I'd probably wear something similar to what Phil's wearing, maybe have a fishing rod or something, maybe have some fish slung over my back or something.
Yeah, I'd have to pick Saint Padre Pio because he was a crazy dude, and he's one of my favorite saints.
Yeah, I think it's really cool if you dressed up as St. Michael the Archangel on Halloween because he's the one who defeated Satan. So that would be a really bold way to get the message out, like we're trying to get Halloween back to the religious aspect. A deep part of our Catholic identity lies in the belief of the communion of saints.
We say in the Creed during Mass that we believe in the communion of saints.
The saints are in communion with God in heaven and therefore pray and intercede for us.
Praying with the saints is a powerful way to increase our prayer life.
And remembering and praying for all the souls who have died.
Reminds us of our mortality and that we'll all be united in Christ in heaven one day.
Halloween can be an opportunity to remember and celebrate these truths we profess as Catholics.
Halloween can also be a great teaching moment, as Dan tells us next.
I think Halloween is a great teaching moment. We go out as kids to go trick-or-treating and collecting candy. As adults and young teens or older teens, we go out sometimes to that Halloween party that some friend is having. But wouldn't it be an interesting way to end your night if, in remembrance of Halloween, in remembrance of the Christian holiday, you were to get together and at the end of the night just took turns talking about someone who mattered greatly in our lives, someone who you lost in your life that was really significant. That night changes from a secular event to a spiritual celebration. You're together as Christians celebrating the holiday and growing in your faith. Even if it's not a direct catechesis night or a night of theology or a religion class, you're gaining the knowledge of how others have coped with loss and of the beautiful people that others have experienced in their life.
One way that we can always try to keep Halloween holy is by behaving. I think as Christians we should realize that it's important to always, have that Christian sense of moral and morality. And if you look at the Ten Commandments, I mean, one way we want to behave is by, being respectful of the people we're around, and by not stealing and by not being mischievous on mischief night and things like that, by just being a good person and not participating in negative things in that time.
Yeah, and certainly dress up in a respectful costume, especially not like the devil.
And you got to remember on All Souls Day to pray for the departed, the dearly departed. And definitely remember on All Saints Day, well, the saints are awesome. You always got to remember those guys and always ask them for help if you need it.
Halloween is a great time to witness our faith.
Whatever masks and costumes we wear, whether you're an angel
or Abraham Lincoln, we can't hide the fact that we are children of God, followers of Christ.
Whatever we are doing, we should be witnesses to our faith.
Just like we want to keep Christ in Christmas.
We should also keep the hallow or holy in Halloween.
So how have you celebrated the real meaning of Halloween?
We'd love to hear from you.
Contact us at realfaithtv.com.
Or follow us on Twitter.
And we'll leave you with this passage.
May you be made strong with all the strength that comes from His glorious power.
And may you be prepared to endure everything with patience,
while joyfully giving thanks to the Father, who has enabled you to share in the inheritance of the saints in the light.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.
Or scored 7 years ago.